What studies do you have that people that have had the vaccine or have had the infection are spreading the infection? If we're not spreading the infection, isn't it just theater?
No, it's
not.
not.
The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater?
No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater. Let's get down to the facts.
So that is Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci going at it, talking about political theater. One's accusing the other of theater. The other is no doubt executing political theater. But this is one of those discussions that's ongoing right now in terms of what happens if you get a vaccine and you theoretically have some heightened level of immunity that is higher than it was before you were vaccinated. But the CDC guidance still says that when you go out in public, various people in various situations should still wear masks. That was just the beginning of the interaction. We'll play you some of the rest of it so you can judge for yourself.
You're not hearing what I'm saying about variants. We're talking about wild type versus variants.
And what proof is there that there are significant reinfections with hospitalizations and death from the variants? None in our country, 0.
Well, because we don't have a prevalent of a variant yet. We're having one, can I finish? We're having 117 that's becoming more dominant.
Policy based on conjecture.
No, it isn't based on conjecture.
Variants, so you want people to wear masks for another couple years.
No.
You've been vaccinated and you parade around in 2 masks for show.
No.
You can't get it again. There's virtually 0% chance you're going to get it, and yet you're telling people that have had the vaccine, who have immunity. You're defying everything we know about immunity by telling people to wear masks to have been vaccinated. No. Instead, you should be saying there is no science to say we're going to have a problem from the large number of people being vaccinated. You want to get rid of vaccine hesitancy? Tell them they can quit wearing their mask after they get the vaccine. You want people to get the vaccine? Give them a reward instead of telling them that the nanny state's going to be there for 3 more years and you got to wear a mask forever. People don't want to hear it. There's no science behind it.
Well, let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Masks are protective, and we
have immunity there, theater. If you already have immunity, you're wearing a mask to give comfort to others. You're not wearing a mask because of any science.
I totally disagree with you.
So that's how it played out. Someone had to come in and break up the fight between Dr. Paul and Dr. Fauci. The one is an epidemiologist, and the other can tell you whether or not you can see this, row of letters on the wall. Just to kind of clarify, Centers for Disease Control, as reported by The Hill, advised that those who have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 should wear a mask in public nonetheless. So Cenk, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so this one's complicated. So a lot of times these days, the right wing makes it easy. They just make up stuff. And then we explain to you that that's not at all true. And then we give you the actual facts and we move on. So in this case, I have some sympathy for Rand Paul's position if he wasn't such a jerk. And I'll explain why him being a jerk is relevant too. So after you get vaccinated, it is very likely that you are safe and the people you're around are also safe. There's a study out of Israel saying that it is very unlikely for you to pass it on to others who have not yet been vaccinated. So, and that science is leading in that direction. Now, is Dr. Fauci being overly careful? That's my best guess, but I'm not a doctor, right? And I haven't studied this for a living. But I can understand why he's being overly careful because a lot of people aren't wearing masks before they get vaccinated. And so even if it was quote unquote theater, for public officials, that theater is actually politically relevant. Not in terms of electoral politics, but in terms of policy, because you want to encourage as much mask wearing as possible. Now, that's pre-vaccine. So if Rand Paul wanted to make the point in an intellectual way, in a respectful way, and an intellectually honest way, he would say, Dr. Fauci, aren't you being overly careful? And don't we want to, and so he mentioned the reward part, and that's fine. Don't we want to reward people for getting a vaccine? So shouldn't we calibrate this differently as opposed to, oh, you're doing for a political stunt, it's the Democrats who are, obsessed with the mask. Well, what's the message you're sending by framing it that way? The message you're sending is masks are not important, they're only theater. Don't listen to the doctors and the scientists that tell you to wear one. And in a country that is still overwhelmingly not vaccinated, that is a very bad message to send out.
Yes, and we are setting records. It was reported today, there was an announcement by President Biden who said that we will hit our 100 million vaccination mark, which was his goal for 100 days. We've hit it at day 58, so we're ahead of schedule. But with Rand Paul, with me, it's always like, God, your dad had so much more integrity. Like Ron Paul, Dr. Ron Paul was the guy who you'd ask a question, and yes, he's a libertarian, and yes, he's one of those like fundamentalist libertarian, for lack of a better term, where he was just gonna give you the answer according to his libertarian ideology. It was, 5 minutes talking to him, it makes some sense. 15 minutes talking to him, you're like, what's happening? An hour in, you're like, oh, that's nuts. For me, that's my personal appraisal of it. But at least I knew what I was dealing with. With Rand Paul, I just have to, the son realizes that his dad could never be president. And so he knows that he has to play some extra level of politics in order to become president. And he thought he had a shot last go around and he got annihilated by Trump, but he still wants to stay in there and make the points and stay relevant. That's what's frustrating with Rand Paul. With Dr. Fauci, like I understand that he is the leading epidemiologist and he deals with this stuff every single day, all day. And he's just coming out of the last administration where the president just did not listen to him at all. And everything the president was doing was utterly politically motivated. And so at every turn, Dr. Fauci was shot down. And now he has people that are listening to him. But he still has people like Rand Paul out there who bury their head in the sand when it comes down to the very real fact that it makes sense for you to take your mask off when you're vaccinated in certain situations. But it really doesn't make sense for you to absolutely take it off anywhere. And then add to that fact, yes, there are gonna be people who just don't wear their masks, they're not vaccinated, they're gonna tell you that they're vaccinated. And when you're at the supermarket, you're gonna look around and not know what to do. And there is some element of theater in that, but that element of theater is dwarfed by the theater that's been going on for the last year and a half from the right wing that is all about pretending that they're fighting for Americans' rights, when in reality, all they're doing is making people unnecessarily vulnerable to this already deadly disease. That's what's frustrating.
100%. Look, last thing is that risk. Look, everybody's got a different risk tolerance, right? And so, but pre-vaccination and post-vaccination makes a giant difference, because pre-vaccination, you're not just taking a risk with yourself, you're taking a risk on behalf of others. And that's the unacceptable part, right? So you want to be outside and you're not anywhere near other people, you're not wearing a mask, nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're gonna go inside without a mask and you haven't been vaccinated, you're actively putting other people in danger. And so that's where a mandate makes sense, because it's the government protecting people. It's not to try to take your freedom away. It's like saying, oh, well, I punched a guy in the face and you took the freedom of my fist away from me. Well, yeah, we're allowed to do that. There are limits to so-called freedom if you use it to hurt other people. But post-vaccination, everybody's gonna have a different risk tolerance, and that you might say, hey, listen, I'm not comfortable, even though you're vaccinated and I'm vaccinated, without a mask inside. Then you do you. No problem. Then wear the mask. But if everybody's vaccinated and you're vaccinated, and we have increasing evidence and increasing scientific backing for not wearing masks, not causing a bigger problem, then we got to be okay with people not wearing masks. So and I'm just saying it's okay in either direction post-vaccination, right? And because then at that point you're putting your feelings on other people. But even then, there's nothing wrong with being respectful. So like right now, when I go outside, if I'm walking and I'm not near anyone, I don't have a mask on. But if I see someone coming and they look like they're gonna be uncomfortable, even though we're wide open and they're 100 feet away, like they're moving towards the street or something to get out of the way, then I immediately put a mask on. Like I would have crossed the street anyway, but I'll cross the street and put a mask on. Why? To make them comfortable. You know why? Because I'd like to think I'm a decent person. I don't want to make them uncomfortable, even if I think across the street is perfectly safe, right? So can we be mindful of each other? Is that too much to ask for a right winger? I don't know, probably.
Yeah, and then one last fact, we're not gonna play the video, but Fauci does explain his concern is that there are variants, and you're anywhere between 2 and 8 times more likely to be susceptible to either a variant or the original strain, or to a variant if you have been vaccinated than the way you're vulnerable to the original strain. that makes sense. But the variants are what he's concerned about. That's it. We have to take.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Brett, that's where I think, in my opinion, and it's not anywhere near as weighty as the doctors or scientists, is that he's being overly careful. The variants are not necessarily here yet. We don't know what the variants can do. So should a public health official be really careful? Yes, that's his job. His job is to be careful, right? But you have to, of course, like I said, you have to have your own risk tolerance. So if I'm vaccinated, for me personally, I'm not going to be that concerned about a variant that might or might not harm me that isn't here yet. So, but that's on everybody, and you got to go figure that out for yourself.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.